لا ما عاد يرعبني ظلم يهددني لا شيء أخسره لا مهما يطول الدرب فالحق معه
عباده الذين اصطفى خصوصا على أفضلهم وخاتم النبيين محمد الأمين وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين وبعد فأعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم ونزلنا عليك الكتاب تبيانا لكل شيء وهدى ورحمة وبشرى للمسلمين صدق الله العظيم. We begin with Allah's blessed name. We praise Him and we glorify Him as He ought to be praised and glorified. And we pray for peace and for blessings on all His noble messengers, and in particular on the last of them all, the blessed Prophet Muhammad sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wa sallam, as we greet you here at Masjid Kunzi in Mombasa with Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Our subject today is an Islamic view of cryptocurrency. So if you have ever heard the term cryptocurrency, can you show me with your hands up? You never heard about it? Oh, that's a good sign. That's a good sign. Like someone in Mombasa, and I told him about Santa Claus. He said, "Who is Santa Claus?" He says, "I never heard who is Santa Claus." That's a good sign, Mombasa. You've never heard about cryptocurrency. Cryptocurrency is connected with the subject of Riba. And we'll explain to you. And if you do not know what is Riba, then your teachers have failed you. Your ulama have failed you. If you do not know what is Riba, your scholars have failed you, because they are the ones who are supposed to teach you. Riba is any money or wealth that you acquire the wrong way. The unjust transfer of wealth is riba. So when Africa is losing its wealth all the time, and Europe is getting richer and richer, and the United States is getting richer and richer, you know riba is at work. When the rich in Africa are getting richer and richer, and the poor remain permanently poor and get poorer and poorer, you know that's riba. There's riba in the banking system, when money is lent and money is borrowed on interest. And all around the world today, this is accepted as something that is legal and permissible, to lend and to borrow money on interest. That's what the world says, it's okay. But when you go in the grave, you learn something different. In the grave, you get a surprise. Oh, but my government never told me that. In the grave, you learn that it is haram to lend and to borrow money and interest. And you learn that this is riba. And you will learn, because your teachers never taught you, that Nabi Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam cursed. He cursed all four. And he said that they're all equally guilty. the one who takes riba, the banking system, the banker, the bank, the one who gives riba, you borrowed money and interest, and you're paying the installment with the extra amount. He cursed you. The one who recorded the transaction, he cursed him. And the two witnesses, he cursed them. And he said they're all equally guilty. We learn that in the grave, if the scholars don't teach it to us. The last revelation to come down in the Quran, the very last one, was a revelation in which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala declared war. He declared war on the moneylender. And he said, my messenger also declared war on the moneylender, sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wa sallam. But if the moneylender gives up the riba, then he is entitled to the return of the amount of money he lent you. So then the riba is the extra amount that you have to pay when you're repaying a loan. The extra amount that you have to pay when you are repaying a loan, that is riba. So you're not allowed to lend money and demand that it be returned to you with anything more. That's riba. He not only cursed, he said that if you consume 1 dirham of riba, and of course dirham is real money, it's a silver coin. Dirham is in the Quran. And dinar is real money, it's a gold coin. And dinar is in the Quran. And if the scholars don't tell you that, and you remain ignorant, then in the grave you'll have to pay a price for that. He said, whoever consumes even one dirham of riba, it is equivalent to committing zina 36 times. He said that riba is comprised of 70 different parts, and the smallest part of riba is equivalent to a man marrying his own mother. So riba is something terrible. He said that the age of Dajjal would be the age of Kathratul Riba. In other words, your enemies are going to use riba to not only rip you off, but also to enslave you, so that you will not be able to resist them. And that's where we are today. We have now become so miserably poor that everyone is struggling for his bread, and no one has time to devote an effort to resist the oppressor, because it's a struggle to survive every day. What is cryptocurrency? Cryptocurrency is like the paper money that you have in your pocket. And you can't say I don't know what is paper money because that's the money we've been using for the last 100 years. That's a long time. And cryptocurrency is like paper money, except that paper money, you can hold it in your hand. You can take it home. You can put it underneath your pillow. Paper money, you can give it in charity and no one will know. It's a secret transaction. You give it and no one will know you gave. So paper money still has some benefit that you can take it home and keep it by your home safely. But cryptocurrency is a form of electronic money. And electronic money is money you cannot see. No African who is an African would accept money you can't see. No, you're not an African anymore. No, you have given up Africa. You have betrayed Africa. Huh? You're not worthy of being called an African. You will accept money you can't see. Electronic money is money you can't touch. Which African will accept money you can't touch? Is there such an African? Huh? Money you can't see, money you can't touch. You have to have the brains of a donkey to accept that. Even a donkey is smarter than that. Because when the donkey sees that money, if he thinks it's food, he'll eat it. Electronic money is money you cannot take home and put it underneath your pillow. No. And in Surah Al-Kahf, and the Imam recited this now from Surah Al-Kahf. In Surah Al-Kahf, there was a believer who was dying, and he was leaving behind orphan children, and he had some inheritance for them. And he could not find anyone who could keep the money for them until they grew up. So he dug a hole in the ground and he buried the money. And then he built a wall. You know about that, don't you? Huh? All right, well then you should know. Can you bury electronic money? Huh? No. No, you can't bury electronic money. No. And so this electronic money is worse than the paper money. But there was electronic money which was still in the name of the paper money. So you'll have the US dollar either as paper or as electronic money. And you will have the euro as paper or as electronic money. And this money was issued by a government, a central bank. So it's under the control of the central banks and through them the governments. But cryptocurrency is a different kind of electronic money. Cryptocurrencies are not issued by central banks. Governments have no control over them. Any Tom or Dick or Harry can issue cryptocurrencies. So why the departure from electronic money and paper money issued by central banks and by governments to a new form of electronic money not under the control of central banks, not under the control of governments? A business can start a money. A jama'ah can start a new money. An individual can start a new money. The answer is that the mastermind wants to prepare the way for one money for all of mankind. Even Mombasa will have to use that money. Haiti will have to use it. Venezuela will have to use it. Russia will have to use it. Argentina will have to use it. Makkah will have to use it. Everybody will have to use one money. So no more US dollars and no more Kenyan shillings. Goodbye. So who will issue this one money that is coming? Answer, that's right, the State of Israel. The State of Israel, the Israeli central bank. So there'll only be one central bank in the world issuing one money for all of mankind. And whosoever controls the money will rule the world. It is as simple as that. You don't need a PhD from any university to understand. Even a schoolboy can understand. So then why is it that the scholars of Islam cannot understand? That's a good question. When the Israeli central bank issues the one currency for all of mankind, it will of course be an electronic money. I don't think they'll use the term cryptocurrency anymore. It is Santa Claus who creates these names, fancy names like Arab Spring. And he uses these names in order to take us for a ride, to corrupt our thinking. When that one currency comes for all of mankind, the danger is even more, greater danger than what we now have today. For at that time, if you do not bow down and submit to Israel and accept Israel as the ruling state in the world, which means bowing down to worship Dajjal, then what will they do to you? Number one, they can target you. You cannot buy and you cannot sell and you cannot keep money without a bank account. If you do not have a bank account, you cannot buy, you cannot sell, and you cannot keep money. So they can refuse to give you a bank account. And when they refuse to give you a bank account, don't come to me and complain to me. Secondly, if you have a bank account, they can simply suspend it, and there's nothing you can do about it. Your money is in your account, but you cannot take it. You cannot use it. Number three, they can block your account permanently, and you've lost all your money. They did this to Argentina about 30 years ago. This is called a trial balloon. And the government of Argentina blocked all bank accounts in Argentina for 1 month. No one could access their bank account for 1 whole month. And the government of Argentina got away with it. So if they could do it for 1 month, they could do it for 1 year. So how will you survive when you have no money? Your money is in your account, but the account is blocked. Is this a subject of some importance to Mombasa? Well, look at how many people from Mombasa are here today to understand this important subject. When that one currency comes from all of mankind, they will monitor how you use your money. And when they see a profile, but he is never buying any alcohol, oh, and he's never paying any money to prostitutes. Oh, look at that. And he's never investing his money in the stock market. Look at that. This is a dangerous man. He takes his children out of the school. We can see from the school fees, he's not paying school fees. He's teaching his children at home. This is a very dangerous man. From the time they see your profile, and it's very easy for them to do that in an electronic age, they will immediately target you. And suddenly your bank account is frozen and you can't complain to anyone. And so what is coming to us in the future, and cryptocurrencies is meant to prepare the way for that future, is slavery. And whoever does not submit to the state of Israel will now become a slave. How did we get here? Let us attempt to turn to the Quran so that the Quran might tell us what is money. Let us turn to Nabi Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, that our Prophet might tell us what is money. Every time I lecture, I always quote at the beginning a passage from Surah Al-Nahl, always, same passage. And I took it from my teacher, may Allah have mercy on his soul, where Allah says, بعد أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم وَنَزَّلْنَا عَلَيْكَ الْكِتَابَ تِبْيَانًا لِكُلِّ شَيْءٍ وَهُدًى وَرَحْمَةً وَبُشْرَى لِلْمُسْلِمِينَ. And we sent down the book, yani the Quran, sent it down on thee, O Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, in order that this Quran might explain all things. And so this Quran must explain what is money. And this Quran must explain to us the strange things which are happening in the world of money, which is riba. And if our scholars do not teach the subject of riba, which is far more dangerous than the army and the military, far more dangerous than political oppression. This is the most dangerous thing of all, economic and monetary slavery. If our scholars do not teach it, if our ulama do not teach it, either because they do not know the subject, either because they do not know the subject, or they're too scared to teach it. And if you accept that and you keep on following them, do you expect that you'll succeed? And so let us turn to the Book of Allah, and let us turn to the Nabi of Allah to explain this subject to us. And I want you to now listen carefully. Can I get some water, please? We all know who was Bilal radiallahu ta'ala anhu, because Bilal was African. Bilal was African radiallahu ta'ala anhu. One day, Bilal radiallahu ta'ala anhu brought some dates and offered them to Nabi Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam. He looked at the dates and he said, Bilal, these are very high quality dates. Where did you get them? What is the Swahili word for dates? Huh? Tender. Tender. This is high quality tender. Tender. Where did you get them? These tender. So Bilal said, O Messenger of Allah, I had 2 kilograms. I'm using modern weights. I had 2 kilograms of lower quality tender, and I exchanged them for this 1 kilogram of higher quality tender. If the 2 kilograms were worth, thank you, if the 2 kilograms of lower quality were worth 5,000 shillings each, this 1 kilogram of higher quality was worth 10,000 shillings. So in value, they were the same. It was a fair exchange, not unjust. Oh, Bilal, said the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam, this is the essence, the heart of riba. Oh, But riba is terrible. So how could this be the heart of riba? To exchange 2 kilograms of tendi for 1 kilogram. But Umar radiallahu ta'ala anhu, he exchanged 1 camel for 4 camels. His camel was an adult and the 4 were baby camels. So an exchange of 1 for 4 camels was halal. But an exchange of 1 for 2 with dates, tendi, haram, riba. Why is this one haram and riba, and that one is halal, no riba? To answer that question, which any schoolboy could have answered 100 years today, 100 years ago. Today, not even the Darul Uloom could answer this question. That is how much knowledge has disappeared from the world today. The answer is located in a proclamation proclaimed by Nabi Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam. He said, if a transaction, a business transaction, involves an exchange of gold for gold, or silver for silver, or wheat for wheat, or barley for barley, or dates for dates, like this one with Bilal, or salt for salt. Since it is like for like, it must be equal for equal. If you have 1 kilogram here, you must have 1 kilogram there. And it must be hand to hand, meaning it cannot be a credit transaction. It must be a cash transaction. Other than that, he said, it would be riba. Now then, put on your thinking cap, because Allah says that He sent down the Quran to people who think. لِقَوْمِ يَتَفَكَّرُونَ. We have gold, we have silver, we have wheat, we have barley, we have dates, we have salt. 6 of them. What is common to all 6? Is there something common to all 6? Yes. They were all used as money. They were all used as money for buying and selling. Money is that which is used as a medium of exchange, to buy and to sell. Money is that which is used as a measure of value. How much is this worth and how much is that worth? And money is that which is used as a store of value. A store of value. So if I put some money aside and then I sleep for 300 years, when I wake up, the money should still be able to buy the food. Are you with me? Are you with me, or I've lost you? Huh? If I sleep for how many years? 300 years. When I wake up, the money should still be able to buy the food. I wonder if your shilling can do that. Huh? Your Kenyan shilling. After 300 years. So money is a store of value. And what is common to all six is that they were all used as money. So in Medina, in the market, if there was ever a shortage of dinar and dirham, gold and silver coins, what would they use as money? What would they use as money? Dates. Dates. Was it 10 day? 10 day. 10 day. They would use 10 day as money. Why? Number one, because all six, gold, silver, wheat, barley, dates and salt, all had one thing in common, in addition to being money. And it was that they all had, the value of the money was inside the money. It was not in the pockets of some American people in Washington. No, the value of the money was inside the money. So we say that this is money with intrinsic value. And so when there was a shortage of gold and silver in the market, they would use dates as money, because dates have value. 10 day has value inside the dates. It has intrinsic value. It has value created by Allah. Number three, they would use dates as money because there was an abundant supply in the market. So if you are in the island of Java, in Indonesia, I just spent some time in Java myself, and you want to use money, which is sunnah money, and there is a shortage of gold and silver coins, what would you use as money in Java? Somebody please tell me. Huh? I can't hear you. I can't hear you, Mombasa. Huh? Rambutan? No. You would use rice as money. Rice. But that would be rice with the husk on it. I think it is called paddy. Paddy. You would use the paddy as money. Okay? If you are in Java. Okay, let me test you again. You know Fidel Castro stopped smoking cigars, don't you know that? Before he died. Okay. So if you are in the island of Cuba and you want to bring back real money, sunnah money, and you have a shortage of gold and silver, what would you use as money? Huh? Don't tell me tobacco. Answer? Sugar is correct. Sugar. Why? Because the rice and the sugar have intrinsic value. Value created by Allah. And they are in abundant supply in the market. So now we can answer the question, why is it that an unequal exchange of dates was haram and riba, but the unequal exchange of camels was not? Answer, you could not use camels as money. Huh? You work for the whole month and your boss gives you your salary, and your salary is a goat, and you're taking the goat at home, and the goat fell down and died. So when you reach home, you told your wife, salary died. She said, go tell the boss. The boss said, when I gave you your salary, salary was alive. You can't use animals as money. And therefore that is why the exchange of 1 camel for 4 was okay, halal. But because you use dates as money, if you allow an unequal exchange of dates, you open the door for the moneylender, who will give you 100 dirhams in exchange for 200, which will be a loan on 100% interest. And this is why the Prophet said, Bilal, this is the essence of riba, the heart of riba. So now we have a definition of money from the Quran and from the Sunnah. Because the word dinar is in the Quran, the word dirham is in the Quran. The Quran prohibits money being lent on interest, yes? And the Quran prohibits you from turning away from this money and using another bogus money. The definition of money in the Quran and Sunnah is that money must always be either gold and silver coins, or when gold and silver coins are in short supply in the market, money must always be articles of food consumption which have intrinsic value, which have a shelf life, not like mangoes and rambutan. No. They have a shelf life, they can last for some time. And money which is in abundant supply in the market. This is the definition of money in the Quran and Sunnah. But today, the world of the scholars of Islam has fallen silent. And you cannot find anyone who can give you this elementary definition. This is an elementary definition of money in the Quran and Sunnah. Either because they don't understand it, I don't know why, or they do not want to do it because they know that once they define money in the Quran and Sunnah, there will be problems for them. What are the problems? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has condemned fasad. It is a terrible sin. If someone steals, we simply cut off his hand. That's all. But when you commit fasad, it's worse than that. The punishment for fasad is to cut the hands and the feet from opposite sides and then crucify. That is in the Quran. Fasad is not just that which corrupts, but corrupts in such a way as to destroy. And Allah says in the Quran, إِنَّ يَأْجُوجَ وَمَأْجُوجَ مُفْسِدُونَ فِي الْأَرْضِ. That Gog and Magog will commit the greatest fasad on the earth. Today, everything is corrupted. The political system is corrupt. The economy is corrupt, the market is corrupt, the money is corrupt, the educational system is corrupt, sports has been corrupted, entertainment has been corrupted, the sexual life has been corrupted and destroyed. There is corruption everywhere. And Allah says in the Quran, that this Quran has come to explain all things. So there must be an explanation in the Quran for this corruption. Where is it? Why has the world of scholars of Islam, why have they not understood this subject? It is strange to me. Not only do they not understand, but there's something even stranger, that I have been teaching this subject for 20-25 years now, around the world, and they refuse to accept anything that comes from me. And so all that I can say is wait, brother, wait for the grave, and you have a bitter surprise at the grave. If you would not listen in this world, the consequences in the grave are going to be terrible for you, because you are betraying Allah and His Messenger. You're betraying the Quran. Allah has told us that Gog and Magog are going to corrupt the world. And we know that Gog and Magog have been released, not sent, released. When these people are brought back to this town to reclaim it as their own, 2,000 years after Allah had expelled them and banned their return. And today they are back in Jerusalem. Today they have returned to Jerusalem after 2,000 years. And instead of asking what is the explanation in the Quran which explains how the Jews have come back to the Holy Land, to Jerusalem, after 2,000 years to reclaim it as their own. What do? I'll tell you what we do. We eat our biryani and we go home and sleep. I don't know what's the favorite meal of Mombasa. Biryani? Oh, look at that. We eat our biryani and go home and sleep. Is that a scholar of Islam? Gog and Magog are the ones responsible for bringing the Jews back to the Holy Land. You don't believe me? Wait until you die. You believe I'm wrong? Wait until you die, and then you'll know who is right and who is wrong. I am fed up now. Fed up teaching this subject to a people who will not hear and will not understand. And therefore Gog and Magog are located in modern Western civilization. That civilization was given power, a power that even Zulkarnain does not have. And when they were released into the world, they used that power to conquer and to colonize the whole world, including East Africa. The British were here in Kenya. The British were in Uganda. I think the Germans were in Tanganyika. The Germans, yeah. And what's that? Trinidad and Tobago is British. That's why I speak English. British, yeah. But my heart is not British now. And when they colonized us, they never decolonized until they had put in place that which they could use to continue to rule us by proxy. So they did not leave Kenya and they did not leave India until they had taken gold and silver out of the market as money and replaced it with paper. That's right, paper. And this world of paper money, it's a pity that this subject is not taught to the scholars of Islam. They don't know the subject. I went to Iran. I met with the highest of the ayatollahs of Iran, and I found they did not know the subject. So the Shia were just as ignorant as the Sunni. They brought together all the whole world under one umbrella of paper money. And they gave us what they call a monetary system in which one money was king. It was called the international currency. And all the rest of the world of money have to submit to this one currency. And whoever had that international currency ruled the world. And the world of paper money passed through 3 stages. And Allah speaks in the Quran about 3 stages. Allah speaks about 3 stages of a shadow. And when the 3 stages are completed, the shadow will disappear and the real man will appear. Listen to the Quran. بعد أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم انطلقوا, proceed, إلى ظل, to a shadow, ذي ثلاث شعب, we should have 3 parts. In the first part of that shadow, the British sterling pound became the international currency. And London became the financial capital of the world. And Pax Britannica came into being. But you need to do a little bit of studies to understand that. You can't devote all your life to the market. You cannot devote all your life to making money. And no time at all to study, to be able to understand. You have to sacrifice some time to study. And then came the transfer from the British pound to the US dollar. And this happened in 1944 at Bretton Woods. And when the US dollar replaced the sterling pound as the international currency, then Washington became the financial capital of the world. And Pax Britannica gave way to Pax Americana. But the shadow has 3 parts. So there has to be a 3rd stage to follow. It was Pax Britannica, and then Pax Americana, and there has to be something else coming. And therefore a new money to replace the US dollar. Now you and I know. We now know it because we've been studying Ilmu Akhir Zaman. We know that it is one universal electronic money which is coming. And it will be issued by the Israeli Central Bank. So Israel become the financial capital of the world tomorrow. And Pax Americana will depart, and Pax Judaica will replace it. And after Pax Judaica has completed its stage, the shadow will disappear. And when the shadow disappears, Al-Masih al-Dajjal will then appear in person. And he will say, Ana al-Masih, I am the Messiah. What is the danger of the paper money? The danger of the paper money was that their money became known as hard currencies. You're familiar with that term, hard currencies. And our money was worthless. They took paper and they gave to it fictitious value and called it money. And in so doing, they were creating wealth out of nothing. But only Allah can do that. So whoever attempts to create wealth out of nothing is trying to be like Allah, and is therefore committing a very transparent act of shirk. And that's the one sin that Allah will not forgive. When He gave His paper money fictitious value and committed shirk, we did the same. So the Islamic Republic of Pakistan would also print the paper and give it a fictitious value, and all the ulama in Pakistan accept it as money and commit shirk. And so around the world today of paper money, all of us sign shirk. And so now we could understand the hadith because of Gog and Magog. It is Yawmul Qiyamah, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala speaks to Adam alayhi salam. And the hadith is in Sahih Bukhari 4 times. And he says to Adam alayhi salam, take out the people for Jahannam. That sounds strange to me. Allah is telling Adam alayhi salam, take out the people for Jahannam. And Adam alayhi salam asks, how many are they, O Allah? And Allah says, out of every 1,000, take 999 for Jahannam. The companions of the Prophet ﷺ were terrified when they heard that. So he looked upon them and he smiled. He said, the one for Jannah will be from you. Someone who faithfully follows the truth which has come from Allah. But he went on to say that the 999 would all be Ahlu Ya'juj wa Ma'juj. And so as we accept the paper money with fictitious value as money, we all become Ahlu Ya'juj wa Ma'juj. There is more danger to it than that. Their money hard currency. Had its value linked to gold, the US dollar. An international law established it at 35 US dollars for 1 ounce of gold. You wouldn't believe me. Yeah, you wouldn't believe me when you know the price of gold now. International law established the value of the US dollar at 35 US dollars for 1 ounce of gold. Number two, that you could take your US dollars to Washington and give it to them, and they had to give you the gold. But you and I couldn't do that. Only a central bank could do that. This is called redeeming the paper for gold. And all the rest of the world of money had no link with gold, no convertibility to gold. They were just paper. And their value was determined in relation to the US dollar. So the system was designed to establish the US dollar as His Majesty, the ruler of the world. And we, excuse my language, the Ummah of Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam, like a bunch, excuse my language, a bunch of jackasses would have no knowledge in their head. The whole Ummah of Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam, including Islamic Pakistan and Islamic Republic of Iran and Egypt, everybody entered into this bogus monetary system of paper money. And we all abandoned money with intrinsic value. So if Allah is waging war on us today, and if the curse of the Prophet is upon us, we should not be surprised. As their money started to lose value, the US dollar started at 35, but then in 1971, in 1966, it was General Charles de Gaulle in France. He realized that this was a game. And France was always in competition with the United States. France was very nationalist. And Charles de Gaulle recognized that the United States was taking us for a ride with this unjust monetary system. They were printing more paper than they had gold. So de Gaulle stood up in the French National Assembly in 1966, and he denounced the monetary system as unjust. Did our scholars do that? Did the Mufti ever do that? Did the Darul Uloom ever do that, what Charles de Gaulle did? And the Americans didn't like that, the Jews didn't like that, so they brought down de Gaulle very quickly. But the successors of de Gaulle continued the same policy. And in 1971, they brought, I think, $3 billion to Washington. They said, Uncle Sam, we want the gold. And Nixon realized the game had now become too dangerous because they didn't have the gold for the dollars. If I printed more paper than I had gold, they'd put me in jail. Yeah, it's like writing checks and you don't have the money. You go to jail. Well, when the United States did that, who could put them to jail? So what Nixon did was to say, well, we gave our word, but we don't have to keep our word. So he reneged, he tore up the Bretton Woods Accord. And he said, from now on, the United States will no longer redeem paper money for gold. And so from 1971, the US dollar was no longer linked with gold. But the value of the US dollar began to fall. From 35, it went to 40. And so in 1973, the United States pulled off the biggest stunt in all of history. It was called the Arab-Israeli War. The United States knew that if a war started between Israel and the Arabs, that King Faisal of Saudi Arabia would impose an oil boycott on the United States. They knew that. And they wanted it. Why? As soon as the war started in October 1973, Faisal imposed an oil boycott. And the Arab oil-producing countries followed suit and imposed an oil boycott on the United States. You were not born as yet, but we know that miles long, the lines outside gas stations in the United States were miles long to buy gas. What happened was that the price of oil went up from $3 a barrel to $12 a barrel. 400% rise. But that meant that the value of the US dollar collapsed from $40 for 1 ounce of gold to 160. So the value of the paper money went down when the price of gold went up. That was what the United States was waiting for. And when that happened, Kissinger then flew to Riyadh in Saudi Arabia and met with Faisal. And he was successful in skillfully and cunningly convincing Faisal, who had only peanuts in his head, that if Saudi Arabia would sell their oil for only US dollars, nothing else. You cannot buy oil for anything else with anything else other than US dollars. If Saudi Arabia will impose that condition, then, said Kissinger, the $12 a barrel that you're now getting is peanuts. You get far, far, far more than that in years to come. And of course Kissinger was right. And Faisal, because he didn't know the Quran, the Saudis normally don't know the Quran. No. He agreed to that. And once he agreed to that, the other Arab oil-producing countries, they came on board. And then OPEC came on board. And the US dollar was saved. The US dollar now became a petrodollar. What is a petrodollar? We go to Sahih Bukhari. And Nabi Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam, prophesied that in Akhir Zaman, the river Euphrates will uncover a mountain of gold. And people will fight for that gold. And each would say, and 999, I think I'm a bit tired now. People will fight for that gold. And 99 out of every 100 who fight for that mountain of gold would be killed. And each would say, I would be the one who will survive. But the believers must not touch that gold. So we are not going to be part of that war for that mountain of gold. And what happened in 1974 was that the mountain of gold came out from underneath the river. Are you able to see it? No? You can't see the mountain of gold from underneath the river as yet? There are two kinds of ayat in the Quran. There are ayah mutashabiha and ayah muhkama. Ayah muhkama are verses which are plain and clear. But ayah mutashabiha are verses which have to be interpreted to get the meaning. So this mountain of gold underneath the river, this is not a plain and clear statement. This has to be interpreted. And in 1974, when Faisal agreed to sell oil for only US dollars, an ocean of oil underneath the river now began to function as a mountain of gold. When the petrodollar was bought, and the petrodollar monetary system allowed the United States to become fabulously wealthy, far beyond anything they had ever dreamed of before. To the extent that today, the President of the United States can simply take a piece of paper, one piece of paper, and write on it 7 trillion US dollars, sign his name, send it to Federal Reserve. The Federal Reserve then transfers to the banks, the favorite banks, $7 trillion. Of course, it's only paper. But when we, the jackasses of the world, when we go to the IMF, as the late Morsi did in Egypt, may Allah have mercy on his soul, Morsi, and we borrow money from the IMF, and we pledge to repay it, then it becomes money. Yes. And so they became fabulously wealthy, beyond anything that they had ever dreamed of before, because an ocean of oil underneath the river now began to function as a mountain of gold. I have respect for Africa. I'll tell you why. The greatest and the most powerful voice in the part of the world from which I came, the most powerful voice to stand up in response of oppression, to challenge the oppressor, and to do so with words which were like bullets, and yet to do it so gracefully and so eloquently, was an African man. It was Malcolm X, an African American. And so I respect an African, because the African must have insight. The African must have spirituality from the earth. The African should be able to see what others cannot see. And so I hope I will not be disappointed by Mombasa. That you'll be able to recognize that an ocean of oil underneath the river now began to function as a mountain of gold. But he said that they will fight for that gold. And when they do so, 99 out of every 100 would be killed, and that is the great war. That's Armageddon, that's the Malhama. There's never been a war in all of history in which 99% of combatants have been killed. None, never. So this war which is coming is the war for the mountain of gold. It's not a war over Korea. It's not a war over Ukraine. It's not a war over Iran. No. The war which is coming, the great war, is a war which is being fought over money. That's right. Because their mountain of gold is under threat today. China has launched the biggest attack on that mountain of gold. China. And China could not have done it if China was not supported by Russia. Because China does not have the military power. But when the Soviet Union collapsed, and China saw Russia returning to Orthodox Christianity from communism, the Chinese realized that this was momentous change. And the Chinese realized we can trust this Russia while we could not trust the Soviet Union. And so the Chinese reached out to Russia, and Russia responded. And the Chinese-Russian alliance came into being, which includes military cooperation. And with support from Russia, China was able to launch the attack on the mountain of gold. And so BRICS came into being. BRICS is Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. But actually, it's actually Russia and China, because South Africa is not a big league player, and India is playing both sides, and Brazil has now turned away and joined the other side. So it's Russia and China, this alliance, which is challenging the mountain of gold. And that mountain of gold is about to collapse. The monetary system is about to collapse. China, for example, has said to Saudi Arabia, I forgot to tell you that when they designed this bogus monetary system, they committed another act of shirk. The first act of shirk was to print paper and give it a fictitious value, playing God. The second act of shirk was to make haram what Allah made halal. The Articles of Agreement of the International Monetary Fund prohibit the use of gold as money. But Allah has permitted it. And Surah At-Tawbah informs us that if you make halal what Allah made haram, that is shirk. This is Surah At-Tawbah. So if you make haram what Allah made halal, that is shirk. And that's what the International Monetary Fund has done. The reason why they have prohibited the use of gold and silver as money is because on the day that gold and silver becomes legal tender, that you could use it for buying and selling, their bogus money will collapse. That's why. And instead of our defying the International Monetary Fund and denying the governments which are submitting to the International Monetary Fund Instead of us challenging them and resisting them, we've all submitted to them. That is the betrayal of the scholars of Islam. And so now we are at that position in time when the petrodollar monetary system is going, when the big war takes place. And in the same way that the sterling pound gave us Pax Britannica and the US dollar gave us Pax Americana, there is a tomorrow coming when a new currency, after the nuclear war, a new currency will give us Pax Judaica. And after Pax Judaica has lasted for a day like a week, does anyone know what I'm talking about? A day like a week? Does anyone know what I'm talking about? Yes, you know? You know? Okay, you know? Hadith of Sahih Muslim, that when Dajjal is released, he'll live on earth for 40 days. Yawmun kasana, a day which will be like a year. Yawmun kashahr, a day which will be like a month. Yawmun kajum'a, a day which will be like a week. وَسَائِرُ أَيَّامِهِ كَأَيَّامِكُمْ, and all his days like our days. At that time he will be in our world of space and time. So Pax Judaica will not last for a long time, a day like a week. When Pax Judaica has completed a day like a week, the shadow will disappear. The shadow which is in which surah? Which surah? Mursalat, mashallah. The shadow will disappear. And then you see Dajjal in human form. But at that time there can be no bogus money, because every Jew knows what is bogus money. So Israel will have to bring back dinar and dirham as money. Yes, for buying and selling. They would not use this term, of course, they use a different term. And when Israel brings back dinar and dirham as money, all the rest of the world will have to do the same. I prefer to use more colorful language. All the rest of the jackasses all over the world will have to do the same as this. Because they eat the biryani and they go home and they sleep and they deserve what is coming for them. Yes, they deserve what is coming for them because they betray the Quran and they betray Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam. And guess what the Prophet said about them? Let us quote this hadith and we'll end. And then we have a little time for question and answer. He said, يُوشِكُ أَيَأْتِي عَلَى النَّاسِ زَمَانٍ. It will not be long before that time will come. لَا يَبْقَى مِنَ الْإِسْلَامِ إِلَّا اسْمُهُ, when nothing will remain of Islam except the name. The heart of the deen is gone. Only the shell remains. Islam came to free the world, to liberate the world. And that struggle to liberate mankind is gone, and only the shell remains. وَلَا يَبْقَى مِنَ الْقُرْآنِ إِلَّا رَسْمُهُ, and nothing will remain of the Quran except the words which are mechanically recited. Because no one studies the Quran. He said, مَسَاجِدُهُمْ عَامِلَةٌ وَهِيَ خَرَابٌ مِنَ الْهُدَى. At that time the masajid will be grand structures, but devoid of guidance. And now listen, وَعُلَمَاؤُهُمْ, and the ulama of those people, شَرُّ النَّاسِ مِمَّنْ تَحْتَ أَدِيمِ السَّمَاءِ, will be the worst people beneath the sky. The worst people beneath the sky would be the scholars of Islam of that time. من عندهم تخرج الفتنة وفيهم تعود. They would be the centers of corruption, corrupting the people. We pray that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala might open our eyes, that we might recognize cryptocurrency for what it is, a stage towards our eventual slavery. ربنا تقبل منا إنك أنت السميع العليم وتب علينا يا مولانا إنك أنت التواب الرحيم برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين آمين. We have a little time for you if you have any questions, or more importantly, if you have any comments there. Come closer. Come closer. I'm an old man, I can't hear properly. Come.
Hussein al-Jufri.
Hussein al-Jufri. Yes.
Assalamu alaikum. Assalamu alaikum. My name is Hussein al-Jufri. I wanted to ask, is this a sign of Qiyamah in that Israel will...
This is a sign of Qiyamah. The question is, are the events unfolding in the world of money a sign of Qiyamah? Answer. The events which are unfolding in the world of money are directly linked with Dajjal. Dajjal wants to rule the world from Jerusalem. And Dajjal has understood that whoever controls money will rule the world. And that's why he started off with the sterling pound, and that gave him Pax Britannica. And then he went to the US dollar, and that gave him Pax Americana. And now he's coming to one universal currency issued by the Israeli Central Bank, and that will give him Pax Judaica. Yes, next question.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I may not be present after the Maghrib prayers. According to the program, it is scheduled for question and answer. And also I take this chance to pray for you because tomorrow you have a trip. أستودع الله دينك وأمانتك وخاتم عملك زودك الله التقوى وغفر ذنبك ويسر لك الأمور حيثما كنت. The questions I want to ask is, the first question is the definition of the term crypto, and the second question, the reference of dirham being noted in the Quran, the chapter and the verse about the dirham in the Holy Quran. Jazakallahu khairan.
Okay, tell me, what was your first question?
The definition of crypto.
What is the definition of crypto? Crypto is simply something which is electronic, like all the rest of electronic money. But the important difference, it is not issued by governments or central bank. I have nothing else to say on the word crypto. You have to go to scholars who are far, far, far more learned than me to analyze the word crypto. Number two. Oh yes. The word dinar is in Surah Al Imran. The word dinar is in Surah Al Imran. Don't ask a scholar of Islam to give you the number of the ayah. That is your homework. We have to give you the name of the surah. That is our homework. You have to find the number of the ayah. That is your homework. Number two, the word dirham is in Surah Yusuf. Surah Yusuf. And you'll find the ayah. Next question. No more questions? Yeah.
Assalamu alaikum. At the very essence of Islam, this you have been talking about riba. Riba, as it is haram according to the Quran, but the reason behind it is the exploitation of poor people by strong, rich people, business people. Now, for example, a money lender, can just a minute. If a money lender gives 300 shillings to a,
I can't understand what you're saying. Oh, yeah, go ahead.
this is according to Islam. Riba is haram. Now, why it is haram behind it? It is because to protect the weaker against the stronger. Now, for example, a money lender gives to a poor man 300 shillings. The value of it in 20 years' time, he gave him 300 shillings. Now, the person who is supposed to give back what he borrowed from the stronger man, if he gives the 300 shillings, the value of 300 shillings in 20 years' time is very low. For example, before it could buy a bicycle, but when you give me, it will just buy sweets, something like that. So that how can you reconcile that money lender to get back from the poor man? Okay.
The Quran gives us two lessons on why Allah has prohibited riba. The first is in Surah Al-Baqarah. The moneylender says that lending money on interest is just another form of business. And Allah says, no. وَأَحَلَّ اللَّهُ الْبَيْعَ وَحَرَّمَ الرِّبَى. That Allah has made business halal and He has made riba haram. Full stop. He now forces us to think, because He doesn't give us all the knowledge on the plate. We have to search for it. We have to think. So we are now forced to ask the question, in what way is a riba transaction not a business transaction? Why is it that a riba transaction does not qualify as a business transaction? The answer is that a business transaction, you can make a profit, you can suffer a loss. Riba transaction has no loss. No. They insulate themselves from loss. I give you 100, you give me 200. Come rain or sunshine, you got to give me the 200. And if you don't have the 200, you have to mortgage something. Mortgage your land, mortgage your house. I have to get my pound of flesh, rain or sunshine. So it does not qualify as a business transaction because you do not embrace risk. What happens when you do business and you take a chance? You can make a profit, you can suffer a loss. Allah can now intervene, take from some and give to others. And so He distributes and He redistributes wealth. So the rich will not remain forever rich, and the poor will not remain forever poor. This is a healthy economy in which wealth is circulating through the economy, not because government is redistributing. When government redistributes, it becomes corruption. but because Allah is redistributing. So as soon as riba enters the economy, you now have this sick economy in which wealth no longer circulates through the economy. The rich remain forever rich, and the poor are imprisoned in permanent poverty. This is the first reason. The second explanation is in Surah Ar-Rum, where Allah says, وَمَا آتَيْتُم مِّن رِبًا لِيَرْبُوَ فِي أَمْوَالِ النَّاسِ فَلَا يَرْبُو عِندَ اللَّهِ وَمَا آتَيْتُم مِّن زَكَاةٍ تُرِيدُونَ وَجْهَ اللَّهِ فَأُولَٰئِكَ هُمُ الْمُضْعِفُونَ. That what you give in charity, seeking Allah's pleasure, Allah's faith, will increase many times with Allah. But what you put out in riba, seeking to increase your wealth at the expense of others, will not increase with Allah. So it is the contrast now between charity and riba. Over there the contrast was between business and riba. Over here the contrast between charity and riba. Full stop. We're forced to think. What is the difference between charity and riba? The Quran wants us to think. That is what we are not doing. An act of charity is one in which you give and you take nothing in return. Riba is the opposite. In an act of riba you take and you give nothing in return. That's what Europe has been doing. So if they're only taking and giving nothing in return, one day Africa will have nothing and they will have everything. And we will be just a herd of donkeys with no brains in our head, that we allow them to rip us off. You see? These are the two reasons Allah has given in the Quran why riba has been prohibited. Is that the question you asked?
The poor man received 200 shillings from the man. So to cover up, the money lender puts interest so that it could help him in future.
3 times in the Quran Allah has commanded, don't rip off people. 3 times. وَلَا تَبْخَسُ النَّاسَ أَشْيَاءَهُمْ. Don't rip off people. Do not cause the value of people's property, people's wealth to be constantly diminished, prohibited. So the falling value of money and the falling value of goods, because the price is going up, is prohibited in the Quran. If you use the money that Allah has ordained, then prices will go up and down based on demand and supply. That's a good market. But when you use the bogus money, what happens? When you went to sleep, your money could have bought a camel. And when you woke up 5 years later, it could only buy a donkey. And you go back to sleep, you wake up 5 years later, it could only buy a goat. And you go back to sleep, and you wake up 5 years later, it could only buy chicken. But when you use the money that Allah gave, and you go to sleep, you can wake up 300 years later and the money can still buy the food. So you do not compensate for the loss of value of your money with riba by adding something to it. Because 2 harams don't make a halal. What you do is you denominate the loan in gold and silver. That's what you do. So when the time comes to repay the loan, regardless of the value of the paper money, you pay back the loan in gold and silver. Okay, 6:15. Any more questions?
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I just wanted to know that what about the household articles?
Yeah.
Household articles, those are being sold on installments.
If a house is being sold on the side,
Household articles, those are being sold on hire purchase basis,
Yeah.
installment. What is this business? Is it Riba?
the question is, if we're selling something on credit.
Installments.
I heard the question. I heard the question, yes. I heard the question. Installments is credit. Whether you use the word installments or use any other words, it's qualified as a credit.
An additional amount is being added in the actual price.
I know,
to
I
make
know.
a future
Yeah,
price.
I know,
So what
yeah.
is this?
My answer to the question is, an article is being sold on credit, meaning you have time to pay. Whether you are paying month by month or from time to time is irrelevant. The question is, an article is being sold on credit, you're being given time to pay. Is it permissible to add an extra amount to the cost of the article because of time? The answer is, in Islam, time does not equate to money. Money cannot increase over time. A credit transaction must have the same price as a cash transaction. So tell the Islamic bank to go and jump in the Indian Ocean. That's where you came from, go back in the ocean. The so-called Islamic bank. That's why some masajid close their doors on me, and some muftis refuse to give me permission to teach, because I call a spade a spade. The house is on sale for 1 million shillings. I don't have the 1 million. So I go to the Islamic bank. This bogus Islamic bank says to me, we will buy the house for the 1 million shillings and we'll sell it to you for 3 million shillings. So I say, excuse me, what did you say? Why would I pay 3 million shillings when the market price is 1 million shillings? If it's a cash transaction, you should make an appointment for me with a good psychiatrist. My head is bad. No, it's not a cash transaction. It's a credit transaction. And so the extra amount over the cash price is because of time. Because of time. To increase the price because of time is the essence of riba. That's why. So the cash price and the credit price in Islam must always be the same. But you must denominate the price in dinar or dirham if it's a credit transaction. So when you wait for your money to come, your money would not be leaking. You know, money leaks. Yeah. Any more questions? I think it's time for Maghrib now? Yeah. One more question. Come. Difficult for me to hear, so that's why I came down here.
Assalamu alaikum. When you refer to Israel, is there any difference between Israel is people, individual, or Israel is a state, it's a Jewish state, or American. Is American is people, or American is Washington. Because I would understand is maybe not all Israelites or Israel have the same ideology state like the rulers, just like the Saudi Saudi Arabians and the kingdom. So Israel, is it Israel is a state or is it Jewish? Is Israel's people or Jewish is a state?
There are some questions I don't answer. I have to keep that knowledge secret. This is one of those questions, yeah. I won't answer that question, no. Yeah. Yeah. Time for Salat.
We are using the M-Pesa, transaction here.
M-Pesa?
Yeah, that's one. It's mobile money.
It's a form of money.
Yeah.
M-Pesa?
Yeah.
It's M-Pesa, not shilling.
Is it haram or is it?
I don't know what is M-Pesa.
It's electronics also.
You send money from one person to another person.
Yeah.
Now the third person takes something from you in the middle.
Even when you are borrowing money?
Are we allowed to charge for taking money from one person and delivering to another? Of course we are. Why should that man be working for free? This man is taking your money and delivering it somewhere. He's like a messenger, and you want him to work for free? No. Okay. ربنا تقبل منا إنك أنت السميع العليم وتب علينا يا مولانا إنك أنت التواب الرحيم. اللهم أنت السلام ومنك السلام تبارك ربنا وتعاليت يا ذا الجلال والإكرام. سمعنا وأطعنا غفرانك ربنا وإليك المصير. وصلى الله تعالى على خير خلق محمد وعلى آله وعلى أصحابه أجمعين برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. I leave for Zanzibar tomorrow and spend 4 days and come back. So I'll be here next Jummah, and then Saturday, and then Sunday and Monday, 4 days. Then we leave for Nairobi. So pay attention for the lectures that's coming.